I worked 100-hour weeks for 6 months to save the company. The day after I closed a $2 million deal, they fired me. The CEO got a $500,000 bonus for my work. r/pro revenge. I've been lurking on this subreddit for years, reading stories and thinking that could never happen to me. Well, life has a funny way of proving you wrong. I finally have a story worth telling, and I need to get this off my chest. Grab a coffee. This is going to be a long one. The meeting. 3 months ago, I walked into HR expecting the best day of my career. Instead, I experienced the worst betrayal of my life. Let me set the scene. It was a Tuesday morning, 9:15 a.m. I'd gotten maybe 4 hours of sleep the night before because I'd been running on adrenaline since the deal closed. The deal. The one I'd been killing myself over for 6 months. The $2 million contract that saved the company from certain bankruptcy. The day before had been incredible. Champagne in the conference room. Handshakes all around. The CEO, a man I'd respected, trusted, even admired, had pulled me aside, looked me in the eyes, and said those words I'll never forget: "We couldn't have done it without you." So when I got the calendar invite for a 9 a.m. meeting with HR to discuss next steps, I thought I knew what was coming. A bonus, obviously. Maybe a promotion to VP of Sales. Hell, maybe even a small equity stake. I'd earned it. Everyone knew I'd earned it. I walked into that conference room with a smile on my face. The HR director was sitting at the table with a folder in front of her. She wasn't smiling. Neither was the company lawyer sitting beside her. "Please, have a seat," she said. I sat down, still not processing what was about to happen. My brain couldn't conceive of it. Not after yesterday. Not after everything. "I'll get right to it," she said, sliding a document across the table. "We're restructuring the sales department, and unfortunately, your position has been eliminated. Today will be your last day." I remember laughing. Actually laughing. Because surely this was a joke. Some kind of bizarre prank. "I'm sorry," I said. "I don't understand. Yesterday we celebrated. The CEO literally thanked me in front of the entire company." "I understand this is difficult," she replied, her voice practiced, rehearsed. "But the decision has been made at the executive level. You'll receive 2-week severance, continuation of health benefits for 30 days, and we'll provide a neutral reference." 2 weeks severance. I worked 100-hour weeks for 6 months. I missed my daughter's first steps. I almost lost my marriage. The day after I saved the company, they fired me. I couldn't speak. I literally could not form words. My hands were shaking. Not from anger, not yet. From shock. Pure, devastating shock. "Security will escort you to gather your personal belongings," she continued. "We ask that you not access any company systems or contact clients during this transition." Security. Like I was a criminal. Like I was a threat. The CEO shook my hand and said, "We couldn't have done it without you." 12 hours later, security was escorting me out with a box of my things. I walked through that office, past the conference room where we'd pop champagne, past my desk where I'd spent countless nights, past colleagues who wouldn't meet my eyes, with a security guard at my elbow and a cardboard box in my arms. Nobody said goodbye. Nobody asked questions. They just watched me leave. Update 1. The backstory, how we got here. I need to give you context, because without it, you won't understand the full weight of what happened. 18 months ago, I joined this company as Senior Director of Sales. It was a mid-sized tech firm, about 200 employees, with what I thought was solid leadership and good culture. The CEO had built it from the ground up over 15 years. He talked a lot about family and loyalty and taking care of our people. I believed him. God help me, I believed him. 6 months into my tenure, the cracks started showing. We were hemorrhaging clients. Our biggest account, about 30% of revenue, left for a competitor. Then another. And another. The sales team was demoralized. Leadership was panicking. Behind closed doors, the CFO was running numbers that painted a grim picture. 6 months from bankruptcy. That was the timeline. I wasn't supposed to know that, but I had a friend in finance who trusted me. 6 months until the money ran out entirely. That's when I had the idea. There was a company, a massive enterprise client, that had been on everyone's wish list for years. They were the white whale. Every competitor had tried to land them. Everyone had failed. They had a reputation for being impossible to please, demanding, and fiercely loyal to their existing vendors. But I had a connection. Years ago, before this job, I'd worked with someone who was now a senior decision-maker at this company. Not a close friend, but someone who respected my work. Someone who might take a meeting. I brought the idea to the CEO. It's a long shot, I told him. But if we can land this client, it changes everything. We're talking about a potential $2 million annual contract. Maybe more. He looked at me with what I now recognize as calculation, not hope. Go for it, he said. But understand, this is your project. If it fails, it's on you. I can't have the board thinking we're chasing impossible deals while the ship is sinking. Translation: if it works, we share the glory. If it fails, you take the fall alone. I should have seen it then. I should have recognized what he was. But I was naive. I was hungry. And I genuinely cared about saving those 200 jobs, the receptionists, the engineers, the support staff who had families and mortgages and kids in college. So I said yes. Update 2. The sacrifice. What followed was the hardest 6 months of my life. The enterprise client didn't just want a pitch. They wanted proof of concept. They wanted detailed proposals. They wanted to meet with our technical team, review our infrastructure, understand our security protocols. They wanted reference calls with existing clients. They wanted site visits. They wanted everything. And they wanted it fast. Their existing contract with a competitor was expiring, and they were evaluating options on an aggressive timeline. I became obsessed. There's no other word for it. I lived and breathed this deal. I was in the office by 6 a.m. and rarely left before midnight. Weekends didn't exist. Holidays didn't exist. My phone was permanently attached to my hand. My wife, my patient, understanding, saint of a wife, tried to be supportive at first. But as weeks turned into months, the strain became unbearable. I missed our anniversary. Not forgot, missed. I was on a plane to meet with the client's procurement team while she sat alone at the restaurant where we'd had our first date, waiting for a husband who never showed up. I'll make it up to you, I promised. When this deal closes, everything will be different. She didn't believe me. I could see it in her eyes. But she didn't leave. Not yet. Then came the day that still haunts me. My daughter was 11 months old. She'd been pulling herself up on furniture for weeks, and my wife kept saying she was close to walking. I kept promising I'd be there for it. I wasn't. I was in a conference room, rehearsing our presentation for the 15th time, when my wife called. I let it go to voicemail. When I finally listened to the message, hours later, I heard my daughter's delighted squealing in the background as my wife's voice, tired and sad, said, "She walked 5 steps. I thought you'd want to know. I gave that company everything. My time, my health, my family. They gave me nothing but a lesson in corporate loyalty. But I kept going. Because I was too far in to quit. Because those 200 jobs depended on me. Because I had told my wife it would be worth it, and I had to make that true." The final weeks were a blur of negotiations, legal reviews, contract revisions, and sleepless nights. The client pushed back on pricing. We revised. They asked for additional terms. We accommodated. Every time I thought we were close, another obstacle appeared. And through it all, I kept the CEO informed. Every milestone, every challenge, every small victory. I copied him on emails, invited him to key meetings, made sure he understood exactly what we were doing and why. He attended maybe 2 meetings total. Both times, he showed up late, said little of substance, and left early. But he always made sure to shake hands with the client's executives. He always made sure to be seen. I was too busy to notice. Too focused on the prize to see the knife being sharpened behind me. Update 3. The victory and the betrayal. The day the deal closed, I felt like I could finally breathe again. $2 million annual contract. 3-year commitment with renewal options. It was even bigger than I'd projected. It was everything. The signing happened on a Monday afternoon. The client's CEO flew in personally. That's how important this was to them. There was a small ceremony in our conference room. Photographers. Press releases. The whole production. Our CEO was suddenly everywhere. Standing next to the client's CEO for photos. Giving quotes to the trade publications. Speaking about our vision and our commitment to excellence. I stood in the background, exhausted but happy. I didn't need the spotlight. I just needed to know it was done. That evening, the company threw a celebration. Catering, champagne, the works. People kept coming up to me, shaking my hand, telling me I was a hero. For a few hours, I felt like maybe it had all been worth it. Then the CEO pulled me aside. "I want you to know," he said, his hand on my shoulder, that none of this would have happened without you. Truly. We couldn't have done it without you. I thanked him. I was genuinely moved. Take tomorrow off, he said. You've earned it. We'll talk about what's next for you later this week. Big things are coming. I went home that night and slept better than I had in months. I hugged my wife. I held my daughter. I thought the hard part was over. The next morning, I decided to go into the office anyway. I wanted to start planning for the implementation, make sure we had everything in place to deliver on our promises to the client. That's when I got the calendar invite. The 9 a.m. meeting with HR to discuss next steps. You already know how that ended. What you don't know, what I didn't learn until weeks later, was what happened after I was escorted out. That same afternoon, the CEO held an all-hands meeting. He stood in front of the entire company and announced that thanks to his leadership and his vision, the company had landed its biggest client ever. He took full credit. My name wasn't mentioned once. 3 days later, the board approved a $500,000 bonus for the CEO for his instrumental role in securing the company's future. He told the board he closed the deal. He got a $500,000 bonus for my work. I got 2 weeks severance and a good luck. He had planned it all along. That's what I eventually realized. He kept me at arm's length during the deal so that my contributions weren't documented in board meetings. He attended just enough client meetings to claim involvement. And he waited until the day after the deal closed to fire me, because he needed me to finish the job, but he didn't want me around to contradict his narrative. It was surgical, calculated, evil, and I had walked right into it. Update 4. The aftermath and the opportunity. The months following my termination were the darkest of my life. I couldn't get out of bed some days. The betrayal had broken something in me. Not just professionally, personally. I had sacrificed everything, and I had nothing to show for it except a gap in my resume and a reputation as the guy who got fired. That's how the industry saw it. That's how recruiters saw it. I applied for positions at competitors, at other companies, anywhere that would have me. Every interview eventually got around to the same question. So, what happened at your last company? What could I say? My CEO stole my work and threw me out? It sounded bitter, paranoid, unprovable. I tried to explain about the deal. I tried to share what had really happened. But without documentation, without proof, I just sounded like a disgruntled ex-employee making excuses. My wife, bless her, never said, "I told you so." But I could see the weight of everything pressing down on her. The uncertainty. The financial stress. The husband who had traded his family for a company that had discarded him like garbage. We burned through our savings. I started considering jobs outside my field. Anything to bring in money while I figured out my next move. And then, 3 months after I'd been escorted out with that cardboard box, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. I'd been getting a lot of spam calls lately, but something made me pick up. "Hey, it's me." The voice was familiar. It took me a moment to place it, the senior decision-maker at the client company. The one who had championed our partnership internally. The one who had pushed for the deal. "I heard what happened," they said. "And I need to tell you something. We just found out you were let go the day after we signed." "Yeah," I said. "Restructuring. That's what they called it." There was a pause. Then, "We signed because of you, not them. You were the reason we went with your company. You personally." I couldn't speak. The client called me personally. Said, "We signed because of you, not them." 3 words that changed everything. "Here's the thing," they continued. "We've been having concerns. Since you left, things have been different. Communication is poor. Deliverables are late. The CEO keeps showing up to meetings to schmooze, but nothing gets done. We're starting to think we made a mistake." My heart was pounding. "We've been looking for an excuse to revisit the contract," they said. "And finding out how they treated you, the person who actually understood our needs, well, that's more than an excuse. That's a red flag." "What are you saying?" I asked. "I'm saying we have a 90-day performance clause. And I'm saying we're prepared to invoke it. We're pulling our contract unless they bring you back. Full reinstatement, proper title, proper compensation." I was speechless. "And if they don't," they continued, "we want to know where you land next. Because wherever you go, we'd like to have a conversation about bringing our business there instead." Update 5. The Reckoning. What happened over the next month felt like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. The client formally notified my former company of their intent to invoke the performance clause. They gave a 30-day notice period and outlined specific concerns, all of which, I later learned, traced back to the chaos that ensued after I was pushed out. No one had properly transitioned my relationships. No one understood the client's specific needs. The CEO had been treating them like any other account instead of the white whale they were. My former company panicked. The CEO tried to reach out to the client directly, but they refused his calls. The board started asking questions. Where was the guy who had managed this relationship? Why was he terminated the day after the deal closed? What exactly had happened? Meanwhile, I got a call from a competitor. A large one. Someone on my network had heard I was available and put in a good word. They wanted to meet. I went in expecting a director-level position, something to get me back on my feet. Instead, they offered me vice president of strategic accounts, a corner office, a team of 10, a signing bonus that made my eyes water. And, here's the part that felt like fiction, they asked if I had any existing relationships that might come with me. I thought about it for exactly 0 seconds. There might be one, I said. The client was thrilled. They wanted to work with me, not with a company. When I told them where I was headed, they started the formal process to exit their contract with my former employer and open discussions with my new one. A $2 million account, walking out the door and following me to a competitor. When my former company got the news, the fallout was immediate and spectacular. The board launched an internal investigation. Emails were reviewed. Meeting records were examined. Former colleagues, many of whom had watched me get escorted out and said nothing, suddenly found their consciences. One by one, they came forward. They told the board who had actually done the work, who had actually managed the relationship, who had actually closed the deal. They told them about the 100-hour weeks, about the presentations I'd built, about the negotiations I'd led, about the CEO showing up to take credit for meetings I'd run. They told them everything. The board discovered that the CEO had deliberately misrepresented his involvement to justify his bonus. He had falsified reports. He had orchestrated my termination to eliminate the only person who could contradict his narrative. He had committed fraud. 2 weeks before my official start date at the new company, I got a text from my former colleague. Just a screenshot. A company-wide announcement. Effective immediately, the CEO has resigned to pursue other opportunities. Resigned. Sure. The way the captain of the Titanic resigned from his post. The board had given him a choice: resign quietly, return the bonus, and avoid legal action, or face the full consequences. He chose door number 1. I don't know where he is now. I don't care. What I do know is this: the company that threw me away is now fighting for survival again. Without the $2 million account, the one I brought in, the one they took from me, they're right back where they started. Maybe worse. Their reputation is damaged. Their leadership is in shambles. The same people who watched me walk out are now updating their resumes. I wish I could say I feel nothing but satisfaction. The truth is more complicated. I feel vindicated, yes. But I also feel sad. Sad for the good people who worked there and will suffer because of one man's greed. Sad for what could have been if I'd been treated fairly. Sad for the time I lost with my family that I'll never get back. But I also feel free. Freer than I've felt in years. Epilogue. Where things stand now. It's been 1 month since I started my new position. The client transition is nearly complete. The $2 million account is officially mine, ours, and we're already discussing expansion. My relationship with my wife is healing. It's not perfect. We're in counseling, working through the damage those 6 months caused. But we're talking again. Really talking. And she tells me she's proud of how I handled everything. Not the obsession with the deal. She's clear that was a mistake. But the aftermath. The way I didn't let bitterness consume me. The way I waited for the right opportunity instead of doing something reckless. My daughter is walking everywhere now. Running, actually. I'm home for dinner most nights. I'm there for bath time and bedtime stories. I'm learning, slowly, what work-life balance actually means. Some of my former colleagues have reached out. A few to apologize for not speaking up sooner. A few to ask if there are openings at my new company. I've helped where I can. I understand why they stayed silent. They had their own families, their own mortgages, their own fears. I don't blame them. Not anymore. The former CEO, I'm told, is having trouble finding new employment. Funny how word gets around in this industry. Funny how the narrative you craft can turn on you when the truth comes out. He stole my work and got a $500,000 bonus. Now he's unemployed and I'm a VP. Karma doesn't forget. It just waits for the right moment. Final thoughts. I've read a lot of stories on this subreddit about revenge served cold. What I want to say to anyone going through something similar is this: don't become the villain of your own story. When I was escorted out of that building, my first instinct was rage. I wanted to burn it all down. I wanted to send emails to every client, post on every social media platform, destroy the CEO's reputation the way he had destroyed mine. I didn't. Partly because I didn't have proof yet. But mostly because I knew that kind of revenge would hurt me more than him. It would make me look crazy. It would confirm whatever narrative he had built. It would give him power over me. Instead, I focused on rebuilding. On being excellent. On trusting that the truth has a way of surfacing. I got lucky. I know that. Not everyone gets a call from a client offering to follow them. Not everyone gets a board investigation that uncovers the truth. Some people get betrayed and never get justice. But what I can say is this: my integrity was the one thing they couldn't take from me. And in the end, it was the thing that saved me. The CEO had power, position, money. But he didn't have relationships built on trust. He didn't have a reputation for honesty. He didn't have people willing to go to bat for him when things got hard. I did. And that made all the difference. TLDR, worked 100-hour weeks for 6 months to close a $2 million deal that saved my company from bankruptcy. CEO took credit, fired me the next day, got a $500,000 bonus. 3 months later, the client found out, pulled their contract, and followed me to my new job. CEO was forced to resign in disgrace. Now I'm a VP and he's unemployed. Karma is slow, but it's thorough. Edit. Wow, this blew up. Thank you all for the support. To answer some common questions. Yes, my wife and I are okay. Better than okay. We're rebuilding. No, I'm not going to pursue legal action against the former CEO. The board investigation documented everything. His career is over. That's enough for me. Yes, I've learned my lesson about work-life balance. Never again will I sacrifice my family for a company. Companies don't love you back. And yes, the champagne at my new job tastes much, much better. Here's what I learned about corporate loyalty. There is none. Companies don't love you back. Never sacrifice your family for a company. I worked 100-hour weeks for 6 months. I missed my daughter's first steps. I almost lost my marriage. The day after I saved the company, they fired me. The CEO shook my hand and said, "We couldn't have done it without you." 12 hours later, security was escorting me out with a box of my things. He told the board he closed the deal. He got a $500,000 bonus for my work. I got 2 weeks severance and a good luck. I gave that company everything. My time, my health, my family. They gave me nothing but a lesson in corporate loyalty. Then the client called me personally. Said, "We signed because of you, not them." 3 words that changed everything. They pulled their $2 million contract. They followed me to my new job. I'm a VP now. The board investigated. Colleagues finally talked. They discovered the CEO had committed fraud. He was forced to resign. He stole my work and got a $500,000 bonus. Now he's unemployed and I'm a VP. Karma doesn't forget. It just waits for the right moment. My integrity was the one thing they couldn't take from me. And in the end, it was the thing that saved me.